The UK government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Keir Starmer, is pushing for an expansion of the already controversial Online Safety Act, targeting what they call misinformation and setting their sights on none other than Elon Musk's X platform, formerly known as Twitter. Hello and welcome. I'm Patrick Christys for GBNews YouTube. The Online Safety Act, which came into full force just a few months ago, was already an incredibly contentious piece of legislation. Critics warned that its broad provisions posed a significant threat to free speech online and really was at the mercy of the norms set out by whoever might be in power at that moment in time. A potentially very dangerous precedent to be set. But apparently that wasn't enough for our government. No, they've decided to double down, using this law as a springboard for even more censorship. It's almost like those people who had concerns to begin with were right all along. At the core of the Online Safety Bill are its vague and subjective censorship requirements, centred around the nebulous concept of harm. So this term extends beyond physical harm to include psychological harm, a notoriously difficult concept to define and to measure and to prove, frankly. The bill goes even further, stating that the mere risk or potential of harm should be treated as the same as actual harm. And you can see here why this is so tricky, can't you? The examples of harm listed in the bill are equally ambiguous. So they include scenarios, quotes, where as a result of the content, individuals do or say something to another individual that results in harm to that other individual or that increases the likelihood of such harm, including but not limited to where individuals act in such a way as a result of content that is related to that other individual's characteristics or membership of a group. Now, did you understand that word salad? Well, you might have done, but if you did, can you not understand how vague that is, really, and how anyone given any particular issue, might be able to have a case to say that someone posting something on X has at least caused them the potential to be harmed based on some kind of nebulous minority group membership. It's a problem, this, isn't it? These unclear and far-reaching definitions not only trample over the free speech rights of the British public, but they also make it nearly impossible for platforms to determine how to comply with this bill. So under such broad definitions, almost any post could potentially be considered harmful, especially when combined with the postmodern idea that speech can be psychologically harmful. Their justification, if you couldn't guess, is please will somebody think of the children. But they do this every time. Whenever you want to introduce a bill that is likely to trample on our rights, they use one of two things: human rights or children, to try to justify it. So they say that children could access the kind of content that you might see online and that might whip up hate speech or damage them personally. That is, I think many people will agree, simply a smokescreen to introduce laws that could impact us all. But let's look beyond the surface and examine what's really going on here. So Ofcom, our ever vigilant online safety regulator, is now eyeing tighter controls on algorithms and live streaming. Dame Melanie Dawes, Ofcom's chief, has been quoted as saying they're considering whether it was necessary to bring in new potential measures around live streaming functionalities and recommender systems on social media sites. In English, they want even more control over how content is distributed and consumed online. The obliging legacy press is trying to portray this as a matter of a financially almighty billionaire like Elon Musk against an entity apparently impoverished and unable to monetarily alone stand up to it. Dame Melanie Dawes even had the audacity to say what Musk is doing is not free speech. It is a businessman competing for market share in the attention economy, getting attention. Competing for market share, though, is not a crime, is it? But apparently, when Elon Musk does it, it's a threat to democracy. And here we go again with the rhetoric. They try to position it as a billionaire, an untouchable billionaire like Elon Musk, who happens to now lean to the right politically. And because he's so rich and powerful, it's going to impact the little guy. And the little guy needs to do something about it. What they conveniently don't tell you is that I have no doubt in my mind that the vast majority of people affected by these new laws will in fact be the little guy. But let's not forget, this is the same Ofcom that's been enforcing new online safety rules since March. They've already been threatening platforms with hefty fines of up to 10% of global turnover if they don't play ball. And now they want even more power. It's like giving a toddler the nuclear codes and then wondering why the house is on fire, isn't it? The government is trying to justify this power grab by pointing to last summer's riots and even dragging Brazil's online censorship efforts into the mix. It's a scattergun approach that reeks of desperation, especially when you consider the reasons behind some of those riots and the reasons behind why maybe people felt disenfranchised. So there we go. They're actually turning over every stone, looking for any excuse to broaden the scope of an already dangerously broad law. Under this act, platforms are required to assess whether their services expose users to illegal material. They're also tasked with protecting children from content deemed harmful. So who gets to decide what's harmful? Is it the government? Is it Ofcom? And where does it stop? Today is protecting children. Tomorrow it could be protecting adults from ideas the government doesn't like. And actually, Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook has just done an interview with Joe Rogan on his podcast, during which he said and revealed that throughout the pandemic, the Joe Biden administration was constantly calling his office and trying to get them to take down what may have been seen as harmful content in relation to the coronavirus and the vaccine rollout. Well, times move on, don't they? What seemed to be harmful content at a particular moment in time by a particular regime is not deemed to be harmful content under another regime or in the fullness of time. So it's really damaging if someone can control that narrative and set out what is and is not harmful. And let's not forget, this is the same government now here that's been pushing for age verification for accessing adult content online. So not only do they want to control what we see, they want to know exactly who's seeing it as well. Even as they're ramping up these controls, they're claiming to protect free speech. It's Orwellian, isn't it? This curtailment on your freedom of speech is actually all about your free speech. Make it make sense. The Act includes duties for platforms to have particular regard to protecting free speech and user privacy. It's about control, though. It's about a government that's terrified of losing its grip on the narrative. They see platforms like X as a threat because they can't control the conversation there and it scares them. They've been able to control the narrative since pretty much the dawn of time. Why? Because legacy media has always been on side. They've always managed to whip legacy media into control and into submission. But they cannot do it with ordinary citizens on platforms like X, and that scares the living daylights out of them. Let's look at the man at the centre of all of this, shall we? It's Elon Musk. So since taking over Twitter, which he's now rebranded as X, Musk has been a thorn in the side of governments and regulators worldwide. He's championed free speech and he's pushed back against censorship attempts. And for that, he has now become a target. Do you really think if Elon Musk was a signed up member of the Labour Party or he'd been pumping out content by the Liberal Democrats or the Greens, that he would be in this position now? No, of course he wouldn't. It's because he's going against the establishment narrative. And the UK government's focus on X is no coincidence. They're using the platform as a scapegoat, a convenient boogeyman to justify their overreach. But make no mistake, this isn't just about X. This is about setting a precedent that could affect all social media platforms and by extension, our ability to communicate freely online. We are already seeing an increased number of people here having their doors kicked in by police for things they have posted on social media. Now, while some of those things might have been a bit fruity, while some of those things might not have been the most pleasant, does it really warrant you being dragged out of your house kicking and screaming by an army of police officers? I don't think so. But do you not think this bill is going to make that more likely? Let's consider the implications of what the government is proposing. They want to control algorithms and recommender systems. Well, in essence, they want to dictate what content you can see and in what order. They're not just policing content anymore. They're trying to control the very mechanisms by which information spreads online. What about live streaming? Well, that's become an incredibly powerful tool for citizen journalism, allowing people to broadcast events as they happen, unfiltered and unedited. But apparently, that's too much freedom for our government's liking. They'd rather have the ability to shut down streams that don't fit their narrative. And you can see it happening now, can't you? Someone live streams from a protest or from an event, and the narrative isn't going the way the government would like it. And so instead of allowing millions of people to just view that unedited as it's happening, they shut that down. And then what do you see later that evening? You see highly edited clips, selective clips, put out on mainstream legacy media, and they can control that narrative. Do you remember those largely peaceful protests during Black Lives Matter, for example, when actually everything was on fire? We already have laws for protecting people online. Harassment, threats, incitement to violence, these are already laws. We already have laws stopping this stuff, both online and offline, actually. We don't really need new laws to police speech, do we? We need better enforcement of the laws that we already have. But here's the real danger. Once you start going down the road of government-controlled speech, where does it end? So today, it's misinformation. Tomorrow, it could be any opinion the government doesn't like. And once we start down that road, there's no telling where it might end. This is a pivotal moment for freedom of speech in the UK. The decisions made right now will shape the future of our online discourse for years to come. We can either stand up for our rights, or we can watch them be eroded bit by bit under this guise of protection for your own good. It's not for your own good. A truly free society is one where all ideas, even unpopular ones, even ones I disagree with, that you disagree with, can be expressed and debated in an open forum. This is Patrick Christys for GBNews YouTube. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more originals content. See you next time.